In this lesson, you're learning scenery collage. You will be successful if you can create 2 and 3-dimensional artworks using a range of materials, technologies, and process. Produce an image or represent an idea through collage art.
Hello and welcome back. Once again, I'm Zifna, teacher from Hiya School, and this week's topic is scenery collage. Let's get creative.
Let's break down the two words scenery collage. First, what do you think a scenery is? It is the natural features of a landscape and it is almost always about nature or the environment. Let's look at some pictures for a visual idea. When you look at these pictures, all you can see is nature, right? For example, these trees, these mountains, the lake here and the sky, these birds. They remind you of nature and they look like the environment, right? And that is what a scenery is. Next, let's look at the second word. What is a collage? It is a piece of art made by sticking different materials like photographs, pieces of paper, magazine, and fabric to a surface. These are some examples of collage art. Keep in mind, these are not examples of today's work, but are examples of collage making. Now let's look at the things you need for this project. First, a picture of a scenery. You're going to choose a scenery by browsing Google or choosing a picture that you've taken from a trip. Second, you need recycled magazines, newspaper, paper, or pieces of cloth. You can use all of these materials or some of them. Next, you need a cardboard piece on which you will be doing the work, a pair of scissors to cut the paper, glue to paste, and pencil and eraser to draw your idea on the piece of cardboard. Now let's move on to the steps. Step 1. Choose a scenery. For example, let's say I chose this scenery. It is very simple, but you can choose a scenery with more objects like mountains or trees. Step 2. Pick out pages or pieces from magazines, newspaper, or pieces of cloth that will suit the colors of your idea. For example, these two magazines will help me make my collage art on this example. So you can see that these magazines have the colors that I need in order to make this collage work, right? So you should keep your scenery in mind when you pick out the pages or pieces that you need. Here is another example. This magazine can help me make this collage, right? Because they have similar colors. Step 3. Cut or rip your paper into little pieces before you start. So before you start, you're going to cut or rip your paper into small sizes. And before we move on, you're going to watch a short video on different ways that you can cut your paper to make your collage.
Today I'm going to be teaching you about 2D collage techniques. There's some materials that you might need, including scissors, wacky scissors, hole punch, glue bottle, and a glue stick. Once you have your materials, you need to start thinking about what you are going to create and how you want to piece the shapes together. You can always start with geometric shapes like triangles, squares, rectangles, and just begin cutting different shapes and piecing them together to create larger shapes. Certain shapes work really well for making people or animals. For example, circles or ovals are great shapes to use for creating a head of a person or an animal. And then you can always add on other parts and pieces to create nose, eyes, mouth, things like that by adding smaller shapes on top of the larger shapes that you created for a body or an animal. Another type of shapes are organic shapes. So all the ones that I cut out in purple and blue are geometric shapes. Those are shapes that have names. Organic shapes don't have a particular name, but they're really just shapes that are free form and shapes that kind of remind you of nature. Next, I'm going to layer by cutting out a shape and putting paper on top of other paper to create depth and layers of paper to make details. Next, I'm going to show you overlapping. Overlapping is similar to layering. It's the same idea that you can create details and interest by creating shapes that go over or under each other. Next is positive and negative. Drawing the shape and then using the scissors to outline directly on top of that line that you drew is the best way to create a positive and negative shape. The positive shape is the piece that you cut out. The negative shape is what is left over. When working with a hole punch, you can use it in a couple different ways. You can use it to create holes in a piece of paper, or you can punch out and use the little circles of paper themselves as part of your artwork. I'd also like to show you how to cut some fancy lines. It's pretty easy to do with a regular pair of scissors just by cutting wavy or zigzag lines, or you can tear the paper to create a more organic feeling edge. You can even use scissors that are the fancy scissors to create all kinds of different lines. I'm also going to show you explode technique, which is where you cut a piece of paper and then leave a little bit of negative space in between where you cut the pieces. Last 2D collage technique I'm going to show you is counterchange. This is where you take a piece of paper and you cut shapes out, keeping both the shapes and the paper that you cut from. Then you flip the shapes the opposite direction and glue them down. Last technique is photo montage. It's similar to collage, but it's a little bit different. Instead of using pieces of paper that are blank or just have a pattern, you're going to be using actual photographs. The way to do this is to start with a magazine, start flipping through, finding images that are interesting to you, and then you can cut them out. You can also cut out and rearrange letters to create new words, similar to the way that you would do with images. Key to a successful photo montage is using the scissors to get as close as you can to the photos that you're cutting out and layering on top of the background. So you have to go really slow and cut very carefully around the pictures. You want to be careful to completely cut away the background so that when you place your object or animal on a new background, it will look like it belongs there. I didn't end up using the panda, but I found this great fish instead. So you can see how fun photo montage can be. Now that I've shown you all these collage techniques, I'm really excited to see how you get creative with collage.
Now let's highlight the methods that is most suitable for your collage art. Some different ways to cut your paper according to the video we just watched. The first one is geometric or organic. Geometric shapes have names and organic shapes don't have names, but they are still shapes, right? Here's another example of the same method. If you look at the geometric and the organic shapes, you can clearly tell which is which, right? Second is the punching method. You can use a puncher if you have one and punch out the colors you want. It'll create a nice texture in your collage. Third is the positive and negative shape. You can use the shape you cut and the remaining piece of the shape to make your collage as well. You can keep these three methods in mind when you make your own collage. Let's move on to step 4, drawing your scenery on your cardboard piece. With a pencil, you're going to simply draw the scenery on the cardboard. Here is a little example. Now look at this. How much time do you think it would take for you to find the color you want in this mess? Even Patrick's head is exploding. To fix that, I have a very important tip for you. Before you cut the pieces of paper or even after you cut them, get a few containers so that you can color coordinate and keep different shades in different containers. For example, shades of red in one container, shades of blue in one container, shades of yellow in one, and shades of green in another. This will make your work quick and easy and create less of a mess, right? On to step 5. Now you can start pasting the pieces of paper where the colors apply. Look at the picture in the middle. This is what I mean by having containers for different colors. This one. I hope you use this idea in making your collage as it will make it very easy for you. Here is another tip to when you paste your paper. Take your time and apply glue as you go on. If you put glue all over the cardboard before you start, it will dry and you will have wasted glue, right? Not to mention, you will be hurriedly trying to paste all the papers together and then you may create a mess. The next step is optional. You can use a small paintbrush to put glue as it will help you apply glue more neatly. Looks like we have another tip. This is a very important step and I hope none of you skip it. Paste your paper close together and don't leave any empty spaces. Look at these two for example. Which do you think is the better one? I think it's this one because they haven't left any space and you can clearly tell that these are mountains, right? And this is a very colorful sky. With this one you can barely tell what it is because of all the space there is left, right? So that means this is not the correct one, but this is the correct one. Now let's look at these examples of your final work. In everything but the top middle, they have used the ripping method, right? The top middle is this one. They've used the ripping method in everything but this one, and in this one they've used two methods, one of which is the ripping method here and the other is that they've used the cutting method here. Look how clean that looks. You can try these methods in your final works too. Now we are going to watch a video of how to make a scenery collage with the ripping method. Very satisfying, right? Next, we will watch a short video on how to make a scenery collage with the cutting method. The last one was the ripping method, and the next one will be the cutting method.
That was very satisfying to watch, am I right? I hope you all follow all the steps, tips and tricks to do your collage artwork, and I hope you have fun. Good luck, stay safe.